Hello everybody, this is Joe with Carbon Marine. Today I'm going to give you 3 push-pull tips as we're coming into tarpon season. It's the end of March. April historically punctuates the beginning of tarpon season. We're already starting to see the bigger tarpon swimming down south where the water's warmer. Typically tarpon season means that folks are going to be using longer push-pulls. What is a longer push-pull? A longer push-pull is a push-pull that's over 22 feet in length. Periodically, I'll get requests from someone for a 25 or 26 foot push pull. I try to discourage them from doing that because there is a limit to which it's impractical and it's highly disadvantageous to have a very, very long pole just because it's difficult to manage when you're not actually in the water. I built 2 years ago, 25 foot long. Neither one of them made it to the water before they got broken. Just because they were so long relative to the boat. So anyway, tarpon season, the classical tarpon push pole for Keys tarpon fishing is 24 foot. Typical skiff in that genre of technical poling skiff is on the short side 16, on the long side 18. So let's just say my boat's 17 foot 10 inches East Cape Cayman. When I'm running a 24 foot push pole, there's a lot going on. You got to pay attention to what's going on, especially if you're in a technical poling skiff with low freeboard and the boat gets a lot of action, or if you're running in outside, ocean side, or on the inside through Florida Bay. I can't tell you how many push poles have been lost in what I have labeled the Bermuda Triangle for push poles, and that is Whitewater Bay. Whitewater Bay has claimed, in the Everglades, has claimed many long push poles because it can get pretty nasty in there. The tide can be coming out, the wind can be coming in, and it just sets up these dead man chop waves for a long time, and you're puckered up, trying to keep your client or your friend or whoever you're with comfortable and secure and safe, and you're not paying attention to the push pole. So I'm going to give you 3 tips that I have figured out over the years on how to save your push pole if it happens to come off of the boat, how to find it if it happens to come off of the boat, and more importantly, when you're trailering or you're docking with a longer push pole, how to prevent some other guy that's not paying attention. We've all been there. We've been to the ramp with the fella that's just got his $15,000, $20,000 jet ski and he doesn't know how to operate it, and he ends up distracted and it runs into your push pole. Because it's hanging off of your boat 6 feet off of the back, and he doesn't see it. So the first tip is really obvious. Put your name and your phone number on the pole. Is that going to stop a dishonest guy from finding it and keeping it? No. I mean, we've got those. Those people have always been here. They're going to continue to be here. But I can't tell you how many times people find push poles and they call me and say, hey, I found this push pole in location XYZ. If anybody calls looking for a pole, here's my name, and if they can tell me what it looks like or tell me what the pole is, then I'll give it back to them. So it would help if you had your name and phone number on the push pole. It's not super easy to do, but you can engrave it into the foot. You can put it on tape and wrap it around either the tip section or the foot section. Probably the foot section would be better. Tip section gets a lot of abrasion. So that's a really simple way. Put your name and phone number on your push pole. Secondly, use a safety flag, right? So we have these made. We sell them online. I think they're like $25, and this material is reflective. It's super bright. It's super durable, and the fellow that designed these designed it in a way that, I struggle a little bit to get it onto the pole, but that's good because you don't want it to come off of the pole. And if you're going to make really long runs in remote locations and potentially encountering super rough water, I would say put this on your pole when you're trailering, and when you get to the ramp, leave it on the pole until you get to your final fishing spot. And when you dismount the push pole to get onto the poling platform, then take it off. Why would you do that? Well, I would advocate you do that because if that black push pole falls off in tannicky water, you're going to see this bright orange flag a hell of a lot easier than you are a semi-submerged floating push pole in chop. So it's going to help you be able to turn around and come back. I mean, how many times have you guys been running and your hat blows off, and as fast as you get turned around and get back to the hat, it's an inch under the water. You can barely see it and barely get it back. And then push poles will float. They'll float, but they're just not easy to see. They're black and dark, typically dark water. So I would say get a safety flag. If you don't want to spend the money to get one of these, figure out. I'm just going to tell you that it's worth it, because you're going to pull your eyeballs out trying to figure out how to get the damn thing to stay on. And this doesn't have the clunky metal, spring clamp, which is what I use when I'm delivering push poles. But I'm delivering 15 or 20 at a time, so it doesn't cause a problem. But you put that spring clamp on the back of an outboard, or on a push pole in the back of a motor running across open water, the metal clamp's not a good idea. These will stay on the pole, and they're super, super bright, and they're very easy to see if the pole comes off. Now, the last tip is a little more for the techie guys and the guys that use Apple products. I'm a huge fan of Apple products. A late bloomer, I'll confess, but I do love my iPhone and some of the Apple products. But put an AirTag on your pole. That's going to help you a lot if the pole gets stolen. You have at least the potential to figure out where it went before they find the AirTag. If it falls in the water, you can go back and pick it up. If you lose it and you just flat out don't know where you lost it, you got a flag and an AirTag. You're going to be able to go. The AirTag's going to tell you where it's at. You can go back to that general area, and you're going to look for this, super fluorescent orange, and you're going to find it. Or somebody else is going to find it, see your name and number. You've got an AirTag, so now you have multiple ways of recovering that push pole. Real quick story: I was up in Inverness recently with the family, staying at my brother and sister-in-law's house, and I was on my way back home, and I'm driving down the road, and I see an object in the middle of the road, and it looked like an iPad. And I said, that looks like an iPad. And I stopped, and I picked it up, and it was an iPad. It was an iPad with a kid's game playing. So I was like, damn, somebody must have just lost, like it must have been on the roof of their car or something. So I turned it off, I sat it down, I came home, I booted it back up, and I tried to access it to figure out who it belonged to. Well, they had it registered to their Apple Find products, so they knew where the iPad was. They didn't have a way to get in touch with me because they didn't know that I had it, but they knew that I had that iPad. And finally, I brought it to the office here, and I put it on one of the desks, hoping that they would track down and cross-reference the address to a company name and a phone number and call me. Well, lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. They called my neighbor at the canvas shop that shares the same address. One of the neighbors, or one of the canvas shop workers, came to me and said, "Hey, did you guys find an iPad?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's right there on the table." I'm like, "Well, this lady's who it belongs to." And I got on the phone with her, and I was like, "Hey, I got your iPad. Give me your address, and I'll box it up, and I'll ship it back. I'll charge it so it's so you can still track it while it's moving, and then I'll put it in a box and I'll mail it back to you." And she lived in, I think she lived in Beverly Hills or Lecanto or somewhere up there. I forget the address. But my point is, yes, it's a little geeky, but if you got to write a check, I had a fellow lose 2 push poles within weeks of each other, 2 24-foot one-piece push poles within weeks of each other in Florida Bay, seasoned guide. I'm not going to say his name because it's embarrassing. But this fellow lost 2 push poles within weeks of each other, same place, same thing. And he didn't have his name on it, didn't have it marked, didn't have an AirTag, and ended up having to buy a third one. So a little bit of precaution. Sometimes you got to get a little fancy, but push poles aren't cheap. And particularly this time of year, if you're a guide and you're running trips day in, day out, you don't have time to go somewhere and buy another push pole. You're up at dark 30. You're guiding until 3 o'clock. You get back by the time you wash the boat and clean the boat out and reorganize and fuel up and do all that, get something to eat and do all that stuff. You turn around at 7 or 8 o'clock. You're ready to go to bed. I mean, you guys are machines out there day in, day out. You don't want to have to go find another push pole, and that's why a lot of the guides in the Keys that have been longtime clients at Carbon Marine, they'll call me in February or March. I'm getting the calls right now. It's middle of March. Getting the calls right now. When are you making your first run to the Keys? I need a new pole. Mine's a little weathered. I just want to have a backup just in case because the season's kicking off. These are the pros. These are the guys that have been doing this for 5, 10, 15 years. This is how they feed their families. They're thinking ahead. It's like going into the woods with a single shot rifle with 1 bullet and you're there for a week. Like, what happens if you shoot that 1 bullet and you miss? Like, Yeah, the push pole is a quintessential piece of equipment. So use these 3 tips. Put your name and your phone number on the pole. Put a safety flag on the pole, especially making long runs and trailering a long pole on a short boat. Keep some little old lady from Pasadena from running into it and breaking it at the gas station. And if you really want to get fancy, attach an AirTag. There's a variety of ways you can do it, but attach an AirTag to the pole. So if you do lose it, you have a little bit of recourse to go back and find it. This is Joe with Carbon Marine. I hope these tips help you save your push pole or avoid ruining your day. If you have any other questions pertaining to push poles, how they're made, what length you should get, what foot type, what tip type, call us at the office, 813-284-7040. You can always reach me at carbonmarine.com. jwellborn at carbonmarine.com is my email. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have and to help you out of any situation that you're perplexed on which way to go. Thank you.